Welcome back to the Sad Boy Cinema Club podcast. My name is Austin. His name is AJ. Join us as we try to find purpose of hope in America's true pastime, watching some good old-fashioned movies. You see the title, you see the thumbnail. We are watching the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers movie, released in 1995, directed by Brian Spicer, story by John James and Arn Olson, starring Jason David Frank as Tommy, Amy Jo Johnson as Kimberly, David Yost as Billy, still Steve Cardenas as Rocky, Johnny Young Bosch as Adam, Kieran Ashley as Aisha, and we'll get into it in a little bit, but the man of the hour, Paul Freeman as the Ivan Ooze, and of course, the guy behind the camera, the cinematography is done by Paul Murphy. This was my movie for the week, and I'll be honest, I just needed a little hit of nostalgia. Been pretty down in the dumps. My mental's not been great. I just wanted to watch something that would bring me some sort of semblance of hope and a time of a simpler time in my childhood. So I really needed this movie. But it was also brought to my attention when we were discussing it off pod last week that you had never seen this movie. You're arguably one of the only millennials that hasn't ever seen this movie. And we also discussed that you weren't really a Power Rangers kid. So with that being the case, what was your did you have any preconceived notions going into this movie at all?
So I'm gonna be honest. Growing up, like you said, I was more of a Turtle boy than a Power Rangers boy. Um, but I honestly, going into this, I had no idea what to expect. Like I remember the TV show vaguely. I remember like the Putty Patrol people or whatever the hell they were. Outside of that, I think I also remember there was a toy for the Power Rangers that like you hit its chest and like its head flipped in, and that's how he got his morphine suit. So like it's very touch and go of what I know about Power Rangers. I will say when my wife and our one of our best friends found out about it that we were going to be watching that this week, they were super excited for me to get to finally see Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. So I like I said, I didn't have any idea going into it, so just went in with an open mind and an open heart, ready to let the Power Ranger and Zordon into me.
Well, if you really like the movie, after we get through this whole breakdown, if you really like the movie, those toys that you're talking about, they're back in Walmart. I've seen them. They're just revamped, and they're the exact same Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. So if you really love the movie, you have options for you. It's important to note right at the beginning because the very opening shot of this movie is a very Star Wars-esque scroll, kind of the narrators breaking down who the Power Rangers are and what they mean to us for the story. It's very important to note right at the beginning here that this is not canon to the rest of the Power Rangers universe. They say that Adam, Rocky, and Aisha have always been Power Rangers, and that is just not the case. Jason, Zach, and Trini were the original red, black, and yellow Power Rangers, and then they had to go to a peace conference and they got written off the show. The reality of the situation was that they were getting screwed on their contracts, and they went to the head department there, said, "Hey, pay up or we walk," and they go, "Okay, walk," and then found three new people to replace them pretty quickly. So I guess the best way to describe it is that this is either a different timeline or a different universe, like an alternate reality that these Power Rangers are living in, but it is not canon. And we talked about it earlier. Paul Freeman plays Ivan Ooze. This is his only appearance in the Power Rangers universe, unless there's some Boom comic that I am unaware of. If you are familiar, let me know down in the comments below. But as far as I'm aware, this is his only appearance in the Power Rangers universe. The first real shot of the movie is our group of heroes in an airplane preparing to skydive along with some pretty lovable doofs, Bulk and Skull, and our six rainbow colored warriors here jump out in a very 90s coded montage to the tune of Higher Ground by the Red Hot Chili Peppers, which fucking rules, by the way. What a way to open a movie while they're descending. Bulk and Skull did not have the courage to make the plunge. And as the Rangers are making their descent down to Angel Grove, which is the base city where they're in, we finally meet a kid named Fred, who will be a pretty integral part of this movie, but they're waiting on all of our teenagers with attitude to land. After the pilot informs Bulk and Skull that they're about to run out of fuel, they decide to take the plunge, albeit a bit too late, and it's going to be pretty important as to how they're late. Immediately after they skydive, we see another very 90s coded montage of our heroes rollerblading to the tune of Free Ride by Dan Hartman. Again, rolls 2 for 2 on the soundtrack so far. And full disclosure for people here, I was only alive in the 90s for really 5 years and sentient for like two of them. So I never really got the rollerblading craze or phase, especially where I lived, was that something that you all had? Or were you a rollerblader?
No, I was not a rollerblader, but I do remember like street hockey like came out like right at, well, I don't know if it came out, but we were exposed to it here right around, what is it, D2 when they play street hockey.
Mm.
I think Mighty Ducks D2. So when that came out, I remember like the flannel and like the jeans and all that in the roller hockey. I never got into it. I'm built not for roller skating. So I cannot. I've never been a roller skater, and I've never been good at it. But circling back, your the soundtrack to this movie fucking rocks. And I don't know what the budget on this film was, but they had to have sunk so much money just in like. There's like three or four big songs that just perfectly encapsulate like the whole 90s vibe, like the extreme era, like you know, it makes you kind of think like if the world was ran by the Hardy brothers or the Hardy Boys from WWF. That's kind of what the Power Rangers universe feels like to me. And you know what? Going in, I like it so far.
There's going to be some quick back and forths between our heroes and Bulk and Squall for a little bit because Bulk and Squall finally land after they've jumped from the airplane, but they have made their way onto a construction site, and a couple of the guys that are working there give them a pretty hard time. They're being interrogated, but then all of a sudden the workers start circling around this manhole cover with very mysterious markings. And it turns out that they're actually no better than the people who unearthed tombs in Egypt because they immediately open this manhole without any regard for anything. And what ascends from the ground is this claw that looks like it's holding an egg. And then again, not any better than anybody in Egypt that's just looking for tombs. One of the workers decides to touch the egg and then immediately gets electrocuted. But mid skate, Alpha 5 reaches out to the Power Rangers via their watches. Side note, those ruled. Always wanted one of those, saying that their leader Zordon needs them back at the command center. Zordon tells the Rangers that 6,000 years ago, a villain named Ivan Ooze was imprisoned after a reign of terror, but the chamber has been opened and the Power Rangers need to close it before he's released. So now we're back at the construction site. It's after hours. A couple of guys who are guarding the Discovery are then quickly met by Rita Repulsa, Goldar, and Lord Zed, who then try to open the egg. There's also this pig man named Mordart, which I'm not sure exactly why he was ever included in this, because he is also not canon. This is also his only time ever making an appearance in the Power Rangers universe, which is weird because they already had the rights to so many other characters. This had to be like a director's cousin or nephew or something like that to just put him on the TV show, because I have no idea, no reason as to why Mordart is in this movie.
I did not know that he like I recognize like Rita and what Lord Zed and like that blue what is he, Goldie?
Goldar.
The blue Goldar. Um I recognize them. Lord Zed kind of makes me think of like if you took a brain and dressed it in like sexy S&M wear. That's kind of the vibe I got from him. Mordar, the pig man, definitely. So I thought that's not the big like fat pig face in a Centurion helmet. Like that's just not like a alternate um version of him. Like that's a two different characters in the Power Rangers universe.
Two different characters. Yeah.
That pig head, does he have a body or is it just like a giant like face, kind of like Angry Bird style?
So it's a head that has arms and legs protruding out of it, but there's like no torso.
What is his like? What is he like? Is he just a shit villain?
I
Because
mean,
I'm gonna be
he's
honest, it seems like a lot of the Power Rangers villains are just terrible at what they do.
I mean, there's they were monsters of the week. I didn't watch Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles a lot, but I would have to imagine that Shredder was the main villain, right? And
Hmm.
then there were villains of the week, and very similar here. Rita, Repulsa, and Lord Zed are the villains, the main villains, but then the Power Rangers have to deal with a monster each week to keep the kids entertained, obviously. So
Are they a
yeah,
thing?
no. They were. There was like a brief fling, and then there's always like alluding to them being together at some point, but Lord Zed eventually overthrows Rita for, like, I don't know how to describe it. Master of the universe, I guess, would be the best way to put it. So he straight up sells Rita out to take that throne. So Lord Zed successfully opens up this egg, and the Ivan Ooze appears. The CGI was pretty bad, and we're going to see a couple points within this movie that are pretty bad CGI, but it's really just a product of the time. Not a whole lot you can do about it. Ivan Ooze is very thankful that he's been released and asks Lord Zed if there's anything that he can do to repay him. Lord Zed wants Ivan Ooze to destroy Zordon so that he wouldn't fear with Zed's plan to rule the world. Shortly after the Rangers arrive at the construction site, we see this egg has been opened, and while they're investigating, someone, a security guard, interrupts them and says, "Hey, you guys can't be here. You got to skedaddle." And then he very quickly turns into Ivan Ooze, who then summons some very ugly henchmen, and we get our first battle sequence of the entire film as Ooze makes his escape to the tune of "Are You Ready" by Devo, which again, killer soundtrack. I want to take a moment to talk about the suits here. Again, very canonically different than the Power Ranger suits. A big reason that this movie got made at all is that Saban, the owner of the intellectual property of the Power Rangers, wanted a new toy line. So they had an independent writer away from the Power Rangers universe write this film with the characters, but gave them new designs for Zords and their suits. This whole thing was a money grab, and honestly, it worked out for him. I think the budget for this movie was like a couple $1 million, and they raked in 40 at the box office, and then probably another 40 or 50 with the toy line. So Saban got a pretty penny off this whole movie.
Yeah, that's not bad for a little money grab. Definitely. Yeah. So I'm assuming you had the toys growing up, right?
Yeah. Shout out to my grandma. Got me anything I wanted.
See, that's how my parents were with Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. They were going through divorce, and so they would buy two of every Ninja Turtle, so that way I would have one to play with and one to hold, so that way I could retire rich. But me being a little dickhead opened both, and I'm not rich, so
Maybe in your next life, you'll remember
maybe.
that. So after our Rangers not so successfully fend off without their powers, they morph for the first time, and of course, we get this very cool. I mean, undoubtedly, the suits are cool. I still prefer the TV version of the suits. I don't know what it was about it because they kind of look metallic, but it also just looked like very hard pleather. I wasn't a huge fan of it, but I did definitely buy the toy, or I guess my grandmother bought the toys when I was younger. But I digress. After they morph, the henchmen disappear, and the Rangers go and try to investigate them and try to figure out where they're at. Back at the command center, Ivan Ooze makes his presence known. Alpha 5 tries to fend him off the best that he can, but Alpha 5 is really no use in this entire movie. Ivan Ooze successfully attacks the command center while lamenting about the fact that he missed the Brady Bunch reunion. And plot holes aside, who would have told him about the Brady Bunch and then who would have told him about the Brady Bunch reunion? That aside, really great bit. A great throwaway line that I still remember to this day and I would quote all the time. I missed the Brady Bunch reunion. Great stuff all around by Paul Freeman there.
Alpha sucks. Like he is the absolute worst. I can't think of a more annoying character in any of the movies that we've watched so far. I cannot think of a worse character than Alpha 5. Like, just did you have an Alpha 5 figure? Did he have toys? Because I can't imagine
Uh
kids played with him.
I mean, he definitely had a toy. I don't remember if he was a part of my set because I was usually focused on the Rangers versus whatever monster that was picked. And Alpha really just kind of stays in the command center. So I don't think that I
Because
had
he's
him,
lame.
but he definitely had an action figure for sure.
Well, he is lame, and if your parents bought you that, they hated you and wanted you to be kidnapped.
Well, hopefully no one got kidnapped because they were Alpha 5 stands. But yeah, I have to agree. Out of all the characters here, Alpha 5 is probably the weakest for sure. The Rangers enter what looks like a parking garage to find these ooze henchmen, and then they're ambushed, and we get a fully morphed fighting sequence. Again, great. With their powers in full force, the Rangers are really no match for the bad guys. After the last of the baddies are dealt with, the Rangers mysteriously power down against their wills. The Blue Ranger, Billy, tries to contact Alpha 5. Radio silent, can't get a hold of him. So they make their way back on foot to the command center, where they see ooze covering the entrance. Once they open the door, they see that the command center has been absolutely destroyed. They rush over to Zordon, And without this tube protecting him, his life force seems to be drifting away and he is slowly dying. It isn't mentioned, but Zordon is the connection to the what's known as the morphing grid, the reason that the Power Rangers can morph. And there's a lot of nerdy shit that I could talk about here, but just know that because Zordon is dying, that's the reason that the Power Rangers demorphed and can't connect to the morphing grid anymore. That they don't have any powers as long as Zordon is dying. Alpha 5 does tell the Rangers that there is this new power on planet Phaedos that they could find to potentially save Zordon. They have just enough power to get to planet Phaedos, but not enough to get back. So it's really a one-shot deal. If he find the powers, great. If not, maybe we never see the Power Rangers again. We're back with Ivan Ooze, and he's making his way over to Lord Zed's lair. And he tells him that there's a new sheriff in town. Traps Rita and Lord Zed inside this snow globe. And then Ivan Ooze vows to destroy the Power Rangers and sends his own Ooze ravens? Crows? Big birds to fly to planet Phaedos to deal with the Rangers. And just as a space lover myself, no bird can get to a different planet in any sort of amount of time. They would also have to be transported there, like the Power Rangers were. But I digress.
These are talking birds, though.
There were talking birds. So because of that, it actually makes me think that they are ravens, because ravens, much like parrots, are mimic birds. So that's really the only thing that I could really go off of. The Rangers arrive at this new planet and they start their adventure to find this power, but are being watched by this hooded figure. Very quickly, back and forth cuts here over the next 15 minutes or so. Back on Earth, Ivan Ooze sets up a production plant and vows to enlist the help of all the parents of Angel Grove to start mass producing his ooze. Again, quick cut. Back to on planet Phaedos, the Rangers are quickly met by these ooze ravens, and it isn't looking good for our heroes because, again, let's not forget, they can't morph. Luckily, they are saved by this hooded figure. She has this battle staff that can emit like this noise frequency that the birds absolutely do not like, and then they book it out of there, which all indications to me tells me that these birds may be autistic and they just didn't want to say it out loud. But that's the only thing that I thought of, because I also get tripped out if I hear a frequency I don't like.
First thing that her staff makes me think of those tubes you can buy as a kid. I mean, you can buy them as an adult too, I guess. There's no one stopping you really. That you just swing around and they just make that weird sound. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
That's what that makes me think of. Also, too, why was she so sexy? Like, this is a kid's movie, but she is like dressed very, very provocative. Like, I know I joked earlier and said that Lord Zed was in like some S&M lingerie, but like she's in pretty much like slave Leia like battle gear, aside from her robe that she had on.
Yeah, I also thought that on this rewatch, I've seen this movie probably like 30 times, and I've thought it before, but especially watching it this time for the pod, I definitely thought that the best way I can describe it, and you've said yourself on the show that you don't know shit about superheroes. How much do you know about Wonder Woman?
I mean, I know she's a woman, and
Great start.
she's an Amazonian, and lives on a planet with a whole bunch of other ladies.
Right. So that's what I think this potentially is. I think that she is an Amazon warrior, and that's just kind of how they dress. Other than that, not really sure. Not really sure why they allowed such a character, because if they were going to do that, they theoretically would have done it with everybody. Not sure why, but yeah, just this one character, an Amazon warrior, I guess. I don't really know. Little trivia for you. Do you know who was set to play this character but ultimately did not?
I'm gonna go Pamela Anderson. That seems like that would fit the vibe.
Yeah, it was not Pamela Anderson, actually. It was Mariska Hargitay from NCIS fame, or Law and Order fame. Sorry, apologies. She, very early in her career, I don't know what the actual deal was. I think that the actress that we see here filmed a bunch of the scenes, had to have a procedure done. I think that she had like a cyst on one of her ovaries that had to be taken care of. And then while Mariska Hargitay was being negotiated with on this particular film, the main actress was able to come back, and then that was kind of the end of that. But there was a very real scenario that Law and Order veteran Mariska Hargitay could have been in the Power Rangers universe to kick off her career.
I wonder if she would have done Law and Order or if that was like a consolation for not getting this. What is her name even in this movie?
Dulcia is the character's name.
Okay, yeah, I wonder if her becoming a mainstay on Law and Order was because she didn't get to book this one. Somebody owed her a favor and we're like, hey, look, we don't know how long this is gonna run for. Fast forward now, it's been on for like 40 fucking years. So
And those checks are fat.
yeah,
The previous hooded figure warns the Rangers to go home. But once they mention
you can't.
Zordon, once they mention Zordon, her tone shifts a little bit. She again is this like master warrior of this planet. She is also aware of how big of an issue Ivan Ooze is, so she tries to lead them to obtain this power that they've been looking for. We're briefly back at the command center where Zordon wants to make contact with the Rangers to help them, but absolutely can't. Then we quickly shift to Ivan Ooze being dressed up as a wizard for this county fair, giving away his ooze as a toy to the children of Angel Grove for free. Thought it was weird. Ivan Ooze is a strange cat in this movie, and there's another thing that we're getting ready to get to that I also think makes him very weird, but this is definitely up there for me.
It definitely now this was before Slime, like in its current um go around, because like I said, I mean I have a third grader for a child and my wife teaches elementary school, so like slime is huge, slime is back, slime is huge. When I was a kid though, slime really wasn't a thing, but gack was. I don't, did you ever have gack? Were you a gack
No,
boy?
my parents would not let
Okay,
me have Gek.
you're familiar with it though, yes?
Yes.
Okay, so yeah, so like I think this was just like a precursor maybe to the modern day slime, but definitely they really went in heavy with the whole Gack scenario, with the whole Avenue slime. And you know, as somebody who has a kid now who's obsessed with slime and making slime and all this and that, um, he was a smart businessman. He would have been on Shark Tank, and they'd have probably got him for some good money. He'd have been able to get something out of there, out of the sharks.
The Rangers arrive at this temple like setting, and they're set to call upon the ancient animals of Ninjetti, which is a real word and a real martial art, and not just a funny word that they made up for this movie. Back on Earth, Frank's dad arrives home and he notices the ooze on the counter. He opens it up, touches it, and it immediately turns him into a mindless zombie. He exits his house, and we see hundreds of other Angel Grove parents doing the exact same thing. And they are like Walking Dead zombies, I guess would be the best way to describe it. If I saw that as a child, I would pass away, I think, because that would be legit jarring to see that.
It definitely made me think of a much more recent movie with weapons, like with the kids, when they're transfixed on what they're transfixed on. So it kind of made me think of that. Also, too, I think it would have been hilarious, because I'm 13-year-old boy. I think it would have been hilarious if when Frank's dad put his fingers in that slime, it'd have been like fart putty, and you just hear a loud. Like I think that would have probably killed with the kids demographic. They should have done it.
The other thing that makes Ivan Ooze a very weird cat is that he has now had enough time to make a whole ass commercial about his ooze, and Zordon sees the commercial and realizes that he, the Rangers, and potentially humanity are now running out of time. Back with the Rangers on Phaedos, after a ceremony, the Rangers are granted their new Gingetti suits and their own animals accompanying it. Aisha, the Yellow Ranger, is the bear. Rocky, the Red Ranger, is the ape. Billy, the Blue Ranger, is the wolf. Kimberly, the Pink Ranger, is the crane. Adam, the Black Ranger, is the frog. He's not too pleased about that, let me tell you that. But he's quickly flirted with by Dulcia, so he's kind of cool with it. And then lastly, Tommy, the White Ranger, is the falcon. They have to go on this journey to truly earn this power before they can actually access the ancient animals, but they have the tools to do it.
The whole frog thing definitely was weird. I was like, what? This There's like not been any sexual tension or any like weird flirtiness this whole movie. And then it's like, well, you've got to kiss a few frogs to make a prince or whatever she said to him. And then he's like, all right, locked in, ready to go. So like that was weird. And like there's a few different times in this movie where I've been like, that just doesn't seem like that's a right place for that, or that doesn't seem like that should be here. And this is definitely one of those moments where I'm just like, oh, okay, yeah, that's a little strange. Also, too, like this whole set is makes me think of like just a weird rainforest cafe vibes. Like the CGI we've talked about is terrible, but it's because of the time. And I'm sure it's, like when we were kids and we were playing like PS2 and N64 games, we were like, oh my god, these are the best graphics ever. They'll never get any more lifelike. And then now you go back and play it and you're like, holy shit, this looks like trash. Like, so I'm sure, same thing. It's just with the time it's gotten better.
It should be mentioned also that the Rangers, and I don't know specifically how much time passes in between each season of the Power Rangers. If it's a year in between seasons, that means that this whole group is no older than 16 because Tommy graduates high school at the beginning of Power Rangers Turbo, which is 2 years away from this point. So this Amazon warrior obviously doesn't understand age of consent, and Adam doesn't give a shit, apparently. So
There's no laws in space.
yeah, there's no loss of space. Back on Earth, Frank arrives to his house, but he can't find his dad. We quickly shift over to the construction site from before, and Ivan Ooze is now a foreman who's making all of these zombie parents do his bidding. The Ooze Ravens comes back, and they report that they unfortunately did not deal with the Power Rangers like asked. He quickly destroys the birds for their ineffectiveness. And then, of course, there's all of these scenes seem pretty brief when we're describing them. It's very quickly back and forth. It was like that in the movie as well. Back with the Rangers now. They start their journey to this like mountains peak, and meanwhile, back on Earth, Frank has infiltrated the construction site. He sees his dad, but the dad won't respond. He now sees that the parents are unearthing this giant mech suit for Ivan Ooze, and Ooze plans to spread his mass-produced ooze all over the world, whatever that means. Back with the Rangers on the way to the mountaintop, they are walking through this jungle, and we stumble upon a literal graveyard of bones of dinosaurs and ancient beings. Turns out those bones have a little bit of kick left in them, and they start to attack the Rangers. After the bone monster goes after Kimberly, Tommy jumps off of it and removes one of its vertebrae, and it crumbles. And as two people who are in the medical profession, we're not EMTs or paramedics or anything like that. I have to say, though, that will do the trick. That is medically sound if you remove someone's vertebrae, for sure.
That'll definitely stop whether it's a monster or a man, right in their tracks. The dinosaurs that come to life fucking kick ass. Like, again, I wasn't a huge fan, or not that I wasn't a huge fan. I didn't know anything about Power Rangers, but if it was like this, I wish I missed out. I really failed myself as a kid if every week was like this, because it just fucking rocked. It touched so many like awesome moments, like especially for like being a little kid, like dinosaurs, monsters, superheroes. Which again, maybe I would know shit about superheroes if I watched older stuff like this. But yeah, like that whole scene was just I fucking love this whole planet that they're on. I'd stay there. I wouldn't have went back and helped Zordon.
Frank makes his way to this production plant that all the parents are now working at, and he sees Ooze mass producing this ooze that we talked about earlier. He also hears Ivan Ooze tell all the parents that he's kind of tired of seeing their stupid faces and orders all of them to head back to the construction site and jump to their death. Seems pretty heavy for a kids' movie, but maybe that was the tone shift needed for a Power Rangers movie. The mass produced ooze starts to pump through these unearthed bug zords, and Ivan Ooze powers them up. Back on Phaedos, the Rangers arrive at this stone wall with these strange carvings on it, and Tommy, ever the leader Tommy, touches one of them, and it comes back to life and wants all the smoke. The Rangers get to use their new Ninjetti powers for the first time, and these creatures aren't your everyday, like, run-of-the-mill bad guys. They've definitely got some shit to them and put up one hell of a fight. The Rangers do eventually get the win, and the giant stone wall starts to open up, and inside they get approached by this ancient pyramid thing that contains the secret powers that they have been looking for this entire time. They're now reconnected to the Morphin grid, which gives them their old powers back, and we learn they have new Zords to accompany their new ancient animals, which is, again, sick. Also, shout out to Saban, got a ton of money off of this whole silly brained idea. With a new lease on life, the Rangers head back to Earth to deal with Ivan Ooze and hopefully save Zordon back on Earth. The Ooze Zords are starting to wreak havoc on Angel Grove. And just in case anybody was like curious, Angel Grove in the Power Ranger universe is like if Los Angeles and New York are smushed together. Just a ton of people, uh, uh, tens of millions of people living in the city. Not sure why you would ever want to live there because it's overcrowded, but whatever. It's that big of a city here. It's the mecca for the Power Rangers universe.
Also, like, so every week there's a new disaster that happens in this city, correct?
Yes.
And so, yeah, I don't know why you'd want to live there either.
As these Zords are wreaking havoc on Angel Grove, the Rangers make their way back to Earth, and no one is more displeased and surprised by this news than Ivan Ooze. The Ooze Zords approach, and the Rangers decide to fight fire with fire, calling upon their new Zords. The parents are making their way to this construction site and walking to their doom. And the kids, all of the kids of the parents, are celebrating the fact that they don't have parents anymore to tell them what to do. I just wish that they saw them mindlessly march toward the production factory because I feel that would have snapped them out of it pretty quick. Frank tries to reason with them, talk some sense into them by saying that their parents are going to die if they don't do something, and they beg him. Frank begs the kids to follow him. The Rangers are still dealing with Ivan Ooze's Zords, and the kids take the monorail into town. The Rangers are starting to get their ass kicked, but Tommy, ever reliable Tommy, is able to destroy one of Ivan's Zords. In a fit of rage, though, Ivan Ooze takes over the husk of this Zord and decides to take matters into his own hands. He's now he's part kaiju. He's a Gundam now in the Power Rangers universe. So pretty scary. Again, not great CGI, but whatever. As Ivan Ooze is going through his process of connecting to the Zord, he destroys part of the monorail. After seeing all of this take place, we get a brand new Zord sequence. Again, more money for Saban. Shout out. Again, and I don't want to keep harping on the CGI because it's really nothing that they could do. But when I would say most of this movie is shot pretty well, the juxtaposition to see that versus a CGI battle of all time is pretty bad. Don't rewatch this movie for the CGI battles. Just know going into it, it's going to be bad, and there's nothing that we can do about it. We didn't write the movie.
There are limitations because the technology wasn't there. But with that being said, I feel like even the limitations that they did have and the fact that this was just basically a cash grab trying to get some new toys made, um, I feel like the CGI for the time was probably phenomenal. Like I can like think of it now, like compare it to other movies, like modern movies. Some of the CGI is just shit, and they've got the technology to do good CGI. And I've seen movies recently that the CGI is worse than the Power Rangers movie from 1995. So like, I think it just comes down to I think that at the time this CGI was probably groundbreaking for them, but through the lens of time, like obviously it's going to be shit. I mean that's over 30 years ago.
It's definitely not the worst use of CGI I've ever seen in a movie. That honor, I guess, belongs to Freddy versus Jason. God, I hope that we review that at some point, maybe close to Halloween, because it's awful. It's the worst thing I've ever seen, and I think about it constantly. It's not the worst, but it's definitely not great. The kids are now making their way into town, and they're quickly approaching this broken monorail. But our big brain Tommy here sees that and spreads his Falcon Zord wings to make sure that the kids get across safe. You're not as experienced of a Power Ranger fan as I am. If I were to put myself on a scale, if I were to put both of us on a scale, actually, I would say you are probably like a one, like you're culturally aware of what the Power Rangers were and how popular they were, but you weren't necessarily like partaking. I watched consistently up until Mystic Force and then kind of trailed off after that. I don't think any of them were particularly great after that. And obviously, at that point I was like close to high school age, wasn't really my scene anymore, not really age demographic. But even after all this time, if I go back and watch, I just don't think they were great. So I would put myself on like a 6 because there are people that love all the Power Ranger series and all of that. Tommy is the Power Ranger. RIP Jason David Frank. He was the Power Ranger. He was the Green Power Ranger. And then so the Green Power Ranger arc I'm going to nerd out here for a second. Let me just rap for a second. The Power Rangers that we know today, most of the footage is taken from a series called Super Sentai in Japan. Saban bought the rights to the footage to be distributed in America, and then just paid actors to act out any of the non-morphed scenes. So the Green Ranger had like a, let's call it a 10 episode arc. I don't even think it was that long, honestly. A 10 episode arc. He is evil, taken by Rita Repulsa, and then he tries to fight with the Rangers for a little bit, but because he's not part of like this evil morphing grid, his power is drained pretty quickly, and then Tommy has to go away forever. The kids watching that show were so pissed that Tommy had to go away that Saban took a different Power Ranger from a different Super Sentai series, gave it to Tommy, and that's how we get the White Ranger. Tommy was that popular that they had to jump through all these hoops just to bring him back on the show because kids were crying because he was leaving. And then after Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, he was Zeo Ranger Red, and then he was the Red Turbo Ranger, and then later he was the Black Dino Thunder Ranger, and of course he was part of the Power Rangers community forever up until the point he passed away. Tommy was the Power Ranger, so it only makes sense that he was able to save the day here with the monorail. After Tommy saves his day with the monorail, he rejoins the rest of the Rangers to create this ultimate Ninjetti Megazord. Again, super sick. I definitely had that toy for sure. The kids arrive at the construction site as their parents are marching toward their doom. Most of the kids try to push them like back away from this ledge, but obviously the parents are just too strong for the kids. Frank has a plan and enlists Bulk and Skull to join him. Just as it looks like the kids are also going to fall to their death with their parents, Frank rides up on this water crane thing. I don't know what to call it. People who actually work a real job, tell me what that is, because I work at a desk and I have no clue. But he uses that water pressure to push the kids and their parents away from the ledge, buying them at least a little bit of time. And I don't think that I would have noticed it as a kid for sure, but now that I have 30 years of experience on me, it reminded me of the civil rights movement, and not in a good way. That water pressure had to hurt. There's no way it didn't.
I'm so glad that you said that because when I see him pull off the hose and do that, my brain immediately went to the civil rights movement, like just turning the hose on the protesters, and like I wasn't thinking about like the water pressure or like the pain or the damage it'll inflict. I was just like, Jesus, am I like fucked in the head that this is what I think about, like, or you know what? I guess there's really no other frame of reference that you would use water like that for other than like crowd control or putting out a fire, and they weren't on fire. So yeah, I guess in the zeitgeist, that's the only two ones you have. So
We're now in the ultimate matchup: Ivan Ooze versus the ultimate Ninjetti Megazord. They decide to do this dance in space, though, and the Rangers' plan is to push Ivan Ooze right in the middle of this oncoming comet. They lock up with him mixed martial arts style, and just when the moment is right, they knee Ivan Ooze in the balls and allow the comet to destroy him. With Ivan Ooze out of the way, this trance is broken, and the parents stop marching to their doom. The day is saved, it turns out. The Rangers rush back to the command center, but Alpha 5 informs them that they're just too late. They all look at Zordon's lifeless body and are overcome with emotion. But Tommy, again, the leader, the Power Ranger, says that they just have to believe that they can bring Zordon back, and it can happen. Because with the power of friendship, anything is possible. They use that power of friendship to breathe life back into Zordon and repair the command center in the process. Zordon's safe. Everyone is celebrating, and the day has been saved. And after this hard day's work, the Rangers head to Angel Grove and enjoy some fireworks. And as the movie fades to black, we are listening to the tune of Dreams by Van Halen. They have nailed the landing on this soundtrack. No notes, all hits, no skips.
the soundtrack from the very beginning, from the opening scene to the ending scene, phenomenal. Like I know we keep gushing on it, but like it really fits perfectly with the whole vibe of this movie. Like the '90s. That if I think of a '90s movie, like an action movie, I'm thinking of these songs are in there, and they You're right. They absolutely crushed it.
So now that we're at the end of the movie, you got to tell me, what did you think overall?
To be honest, I absolutely loved it. I enjoyed it from start to finish. I thought it was very entertaining. I know I wasn't the target audience, but it it hit for me. I definitely know now that had I not been a Turtle Boy, I might have been a Power Ranger man. Um, but yeah, I really enjoyed it. There wasn't a lot that I was just like, oh god, this I can't believe like this sucks or whatever. But there was a lot of just really. It was a fun time. It was a fun movie. I think.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I was the one that brought this to the table, and I've gushed about it the entire time. I also think that it was really good. The only bad thing was the CGI, and again, that was a product of the time. That really wasn't anything that they could have done about it. It's a self-contained story that perfectly embodies what it means to be a Power Ranger and what the Power Rangers were about. Really, just I loved it. What was your favorite thing about this movie?
The favorite thing for me would probably be just the world building, especially when they went traveled to that far off planet. You got to see like the jungles, you got to see the ancient ruins, you got to do battle with skeletons of dinosaurs that came to life. You got some Raven warriors, bikini badass woman. You got to fight these rock monsters who were ready to kill you and would have killed you if they got the chance. So for me, it was just the world building. I thought they did a phenomenal job of just making me want to stay on that planet.
For me, it's definitely the soundtrack. It fucking rips. So many of these songs are in my daily rotation 30 years after the fact, and it strictly came from this movie. We talked about it, about how much this could possibly be within the budget to get all of these songs. Maybe the 90s were a different time. Maybe the songs didn't require that much money to be licensed to be put in a movie, because especially with Van Halen in the middle of the 90s, they would have been charging an arm and a leg, so it couldn't have been that much if the industry standard was $25,000. Here you go. Don't break my heart in this, but tell me what your least favorite thing in this movie was.
I don't want to keep shitting on the CGI, but I think, you know, it being what it was, like if you could isolate it and put it back, and just look at it through that lens of time, then the CGI is fine. But if you're going to look at it as, viewing it through the scope of today, the CGI is definitely lacking. And again, I get it. The capabilities were what the capabilities were. So if I wasn't going to go with that, I would say there was a one point in the movie where I was talking to myself, actually making notes, and was like, "Oh, okay, this is a kids movie. There's not been that many puns. Like, okay, cool, I'm fine with that." And then maybe 3 minutes later, I had to scratch that little mental note out and was like, "No, there's it pun after pun after pun." Which again, it's for kids. I get it, so it works. It just sometimes made it a little like corny.
Yeah, that's actually my least favorite thing. There a lot of campiness in this movie. And if you were to ask me when I was 6 years old when I watched this movie, I would go, yeah, it's incredible. 10 out of 10, 50 out of 10. What are you talking about? But as a 31-year-old, as someone who still does appreciate the Power Rangers universe, but is also not the target demographic, the campiness was a little much for me, and that was definitely my least favorite thing. My answer is obviously duh, but would you rewatch this movie?
I wouldn't not rewatch it. This was definitely a movie that I really had no idea that I would enjoy. Um, Obviously, it's not one of those movies that I think is going to be in heavy rotation for me. I don't think that I don't have that emotional connection to it. But it wasn't bad. I would have no problem rewatching it, but also I wouldn't have a problem if I didn't rewatch it again. So I guess it's kind of talking out of both sides of my face there, but it was fine. I enjoyed it. I'd watch it again if it was on TV, or I guess it wouldn't be on TV, but like if I was somewhere and Power Rangers Mighty Morphin came on, I wouldn't be upset. I'd be like, oh, okay, this is kind of cool.
And then the last bit here, the creme de la creme, the reason we're all here. What did you give it on Letterboxd?
I believe I gave it a 4, maybe a 4.5. Wasn't the target audience. I missed it by about 25, 30 years. But with that being said, I enjoyed it. When I saw it, it was definitely a pleasant surprise. I definitely was not expecting it to be that good. And in fact, deep down, when you decided on this, I was like, shit, this is him getting payback for making him watch all those terrible movies. But I'm glad I watched it. I really enjoyed it.
I only bring heat to this table. If anybody knows that from however many episodes we're in now, I only bring heat to the table. I also gave it a 4. Again, we talked about all the good things. We talked about some of the bad. The campiness was a lot for me. Again, I can't. If we could transport back in time and say 2000 when I would have watched this, it would have been a 5. But as a 31-year-old that has to pay taxes and work a 9 to 5 and hates it, it was a 4. It was perfectly fine. I will watch it again at some point, but it wasn't a 5-star classic. It fundamentally can't be. So 4 is a pretty good score. Before I start plugging all of our socials, you now have to tell me what we're going to watch next week and where people can watch it with us.
I hope you're ready for this one. It is another Tubi classic. It is The Alchemist Cookbook. Honestly, I don't even remember how I stumbled upon it. It was either somebody recommended it on X, or I might have seen a clip of it on TikTok. I don't really recall. But I know nothing about this movie going into it. I'm just blind and open and willing to experience this movie.
Well, join us next week as we watch The Alchemist Cookbook. Follow us on all socials at Sad Boy Cinema on YouTube, here, obviously, Twitter and TikTok. And then also follow our individual Letterboxd accounts. I'm going to put our handles above our head. That's going to do it for us today. Be kind. Tell somebody you love them. See you in the next one.
Might be time to look into